When a woman's interest starts to fade, it can feel like the ground is slipping from beneath you. There's an overwhelming pull to try and repair things, to prove your worth, to win her back. But here's the startling reality. Those natural urges are often the very actions that drive her away even further. Men tend to fall into specific patterns that almost guarantee they'll lose her interest entirely. And the reason is simple. These reactions usually stem from insecurity. Women are exceptionally perceptive and can detect desperation, even when you think you're keeping it hidden. We're taught that if someone starts to drift, the solution is to work harder, to be more present, or to convince them of our value. But ironically, in relationships, this approach can have the opposite effect. When a woman senses she's the one being pursued and that she's fully in control, her interest often drops even further. The more you press, the more her respect diminishes. It's an unfair dynamic, but it's undeniably real. The more you lean in, the faster she pulls back. That's why it's crucial to know what not to do if you're hoping to spark a renewed interest. Think of it as standing at a pivotal crossroads. Your actions now will either confirm her decision to move on or intrigue her, stirring curiosity and respect. So resist those urges to text her constantly, beg for her attention, or shower her with unearned validation. Instead, realize that your value is not tied to her acknowledgement. Confidence paired with restraint has far more impact than any over-the-top gesture or apology. In this video, we'll break down the common traps men fall into when they sense a woman pulling away. These missteps are easy to make but can keep her drifting further if you're not careful. Consider this a guide to preserving your self-respect and revealing a part of you she may have overlooked. Avoid these pitfalls, and you might just find her seeing you in a completely different light. So, if you're ready to stay grounded and show her you're not a man who can be taken for granted, let's get started. The first thing to not do when a woman loses interest is chase her. Let her come to you instead. When a woman's interest starts fading, the natural response for many men is to pursue her more fervently. They think that by showing additional affection, attention, or persistence, she'll be reminded of what she's missing. But here's a tough reality. Chasing usually has the opposite effect. When you pursue someone who's drifting away, it only deepens their sense of disinterest. People tend to value what they have to invest effort in, so if you're constantly available and showering her with attention, she has little motivation to invest any time or energy in you. Picture this. A man senses his girlfriend becoming distant, so he starts texting her nonstop, planning surprise visits and giving her more compliments than ever. In his mind, he's doing everything right to show he cares, but from her perspective, it feels overwhelming, even suffocating. She feels pressured, with no room to breathe or time to miss him. She may even interpret his actions as signs of desperation, which is a major turnoff. In the end, his increased effort only pushes her further away. Instead of chasing, consider taking the opposite approach. Pull back and allow her the space she's already seeking. This shows that you're secure enough to let things play out naturally and that you respect her boundaries while staying focused on your own life. It communicates that your world doesn't revolve around her, which can be incredibly attractive. If she's genuinely interested, she'll notice your absence and begin to wonder about you. This isn't about playing games, but rather about having self-respect and not pouring all your energy into something one-sided. By refraining from chasing, you keep your dignity intact and let her see the strength in your independence. A man who knows his worth doesn't need to chase anyone. This shift in approach sends a message that you're someone worth returning to, simply because you're not desperate to hold on to something that may be slipping away. So next time you feel that urge to chase, remind yourself that stepping back often has more impact than stepping forward. It's about patience, self-respect, and the understanding that sometimes attraction rekindles when you're strong enough to let go. The second mistake to not make is over-explain yourself. When a woman's interest starts waning, a common reaction for many men is to explain themselves, justifying their actions, clarifying their feelings, hoping this will somehow change her mind. The thinking is that if she could just understand their reasons, her interest might spark again. But the reality is that over-explaining often backfires. This need to clarify everything can come across as insecure, almost as if you're seeking her validation. It may even seem like you're trying to convince her to feel a certain way, which is not attractive and can actually erode respect and mystery. When you over-explain, the dynamic shifts. Instead of being someone who stands confidently by his choices, you become a person seeking her permission to be yourself. Even if you mean well, this behavior can feel draining to her. It's important to remember that she likely isn't losing interest because of a misunderstanding. Most often, it's a shift in her feelings or a natural fade in attraction. Trying to intellectualize this with explanations won't address an emotional change. Think of it like this. The more you try to prove yourself, the more you dilute your position. Imagine a man sensing his girlfriend pulling away. So he starts saying things like, "I know I've been busy, but I care about you." Or, "I'm just trying to do what's best for us." In his effort to show he cares, he's actually apologizing for who he is. By letting actions speak for themselves, he would instead convey strength and confidence. By avoiding over-explanations, you signal that you're comfortable with who you are, regardless of her current interest. This doesn't mean being cold or detached. It simply means you're secure enough to let things flow naturally, without the need to narrate each move. Standing by your choices without justifying them radiates a quiet confidence that no lengthy explanation could match. Allow her to draw her own conclusions. Those subtle signs of self-assurance are what keep her intrigued, not words aimed at convincing her. Another common misstep men make when sensing a woman pulling away is to overdo the validation, showering her with compliments, reassurance, and constant approval in hopes of rekindling the connection. Ironically, this often has the opposite effect. When you're too eager to affirm every little thing or constantly tell her how wonderful she is, it can come across as overdone, even insincere. More than that, it disrupts the balance, placing her on a pedestal while you end up in a position of seeking her approval. This unbalanced dynamic can, over time, lessen her attraction. Validation, while important in any relationship, has a different impact when it's genuine rather than excessive. Compliments and reassurances should feel meaningful and well-timed. When offered too freely, they can lose their significance. Rather than building a sense of connection, excessive validation can start to feel overwhelming or unneeded, making her question whether you truly see her or are simply idealizing her. Additionally, this over-validation can give the impression that you're looking for her approval to validate yourself, which can lessen your perceived confidence. Women tend to be drawn to men who are secure in who they are, those who don't require constant reassurance to feel good. When you're self-assured, you don't need to repeatedly affirm how much she means to you. Your confidence is clear through your actions and presence. In a balanced relationship, both partners feel valued without one feeling like the center of endless praise. If she senses that you'll always validate her regardless of her actions, she may come to take it for granted. Authentic attraction needs some room for intrigue, with each person feeling free to explore and appreciate the other over time. Holding back on constant praise lets her earn your appreciation in more meaningful ways and helps her feel confident without endless reinforcement. Well-timed, genuine validation is far more powerful than frequent affirmations. Showing appreciation when it truly counts, rather than overloading her with praise, makes those moments of connection richer and more impactful. This approach allows her to feel drawn back to you naturally, experiencing the stability and balance that comes from being with a man who respects her, yet doesn't need to constantly seek her approval. In doing so, you avoid the need to compensate, and the relationship gains a natural rhythm. The fourth misstep for men trying to recapture a woman's interest is becoming too readily available. While it might seem like being there for her constantly is the right move, this can actually come across as overly eager or even desperate. If you're always ready to respond instantly to every call or message, it signals that you don't have much else going on. No personal goals, no ambitions. This lack of self-focus can make you seem less intriguing and ultimately less attractive. When you're constantly available, you're sending a message that you put your own life on hold, waiting for her lead. This can feel burdensome to her, and she might even begin to take you for granted. Relationships thrive on balance, where each partner respects the other's time and boundaries. Being overly accessible removes the sense of anticipation that fuels attraction, leaving no room for her to miss you or wonder what you're doing. Instead of centering your schedule around her, focus on building yourself up, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Pursue your projects, Spend time with friends and invest in your growth. Showing her that you have your own path and priorities lets her see you as a man of value who doesn't rely on external validation. She'll find this independence attractive, as it's a reminder that you're not dependent on her to feel fulfilled. This doesn't mean ignoring her or playing games. It's about creating balance by making her a part of your world on your terms. When she sees that you're genuinely busy, it helps her appreciate the time you do spend together. By not being there at every second, you create space for her to develop her own desire, reinforcing the relationship based on mutual respect and individuality. Remember, you're worth more than waiting around. Show her that. The fifth and final mistake to not make when a woman's interest begins to fade is never beg. One of the fastest ways to lose respect, attraction, and ultimately a woman's interest is by begging or pleading. When emotions are high, it might feel natural to pour out your heart, hoping she'll understand how much she means to you. But here's the truth. Begging or pleading only confirms her decision to lose interest. It signals you're willing to sacrifice dignity, self-worth, and strength, all qualities that originally attracted her. If you start begging, you send a clear message that you've lost control and are willing to compromise yourself just to keep her around. This approach rarely brings her back. When you beg or plead, you place her on a pedestal, giving her control over your emotions and validation. This imbalance is not only exhausting for her, but it's demoralizing for you, creating a dynamic where you seem overly dependent on her, ultimately making her see you as someone who lacks self-respect. Nobody wants to be with someone who doesn't value themselves. Remember, confidence and self-respect are far more attractive than desperation. Rather than pleading for her to change her mind, focus on your own self-worth. The type of connection you want can only come from mutual respect and genuine desire. By holding on to your dignity, you show her that while you may care, you're fully capable of standing strong on your own. This approach empowers both you and her, giving her the space to reflect on her feelings without pressure. Standing firm sets a boundary that communicates, "I'm willing to work through issues, but I'm not willing to lose myself." Often, this inner strength can make her reconsider as she sees you value yourself first. Even if it doesn't lead to reconciliation, you walk away with your pride intact, open to someone who appreciates the real you. Never underestimate the impact of self-respect. It's a foundation for trust and admiration. Stand firm, stay grounded, and never beg or plead. Confidence is your greatest asset, and it should be the reason she's drawn to you. Here's the reality. If you're pleading for her attention, you've already lost ground. No matter how deeply you care, desperation is not attractive. All the time and effort you've invested mean little if you're not respecting yourself, because without self-respect, she won't respect you either. Men, it's time to wake up. If you've ever found yourself begging or chasing, let go of that mindset now. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I'll be checking in personally, and together we can build a real connection and understanding from here. Thanks for tuning in, and until my next video, remain masculine.